So we got to the point where men are choosing solitude over relationships. And what it comes down to is I don't even think they're men who are opposed to family or the idea of family. I think they're very much in favor of it. But they would rather be alone than deal with disrespect. They would rather have peace than have boundaries walked all over. Now, I'm going to bring up a couple sort of examples here, more so for contrast. But I was at the gym the other day, and I don't normally go to sort of big box commercial gyms, but every now and then there might be a machine I want to use, whether it's for injury prevention. And to be fair, when you go earlier in the day, I was there in the early afternoon, you see a lot less of the kind of nonsense that people talk about with the antics there. And right, I'll say most people were there to exercise, and that's what they were doing. But there was a woman who was in the middle of the gym right in this sort of turf field area. And she had a tripod behind her recording. And really the only way I could put it is, yeah, it is the summer. Yeah, it's hot outside, but there's air conditioning in the gym. There's no reason to go to the gym dressed the way she was unless you're looking for attention, which I assume is what she was doing, being in the middle of the gym, stretching with a tripod behind her. And I would assume to upload the video or record it for some form of social media. Now, any self-respecting man looking at that is not going to want to approach her, not going to want to have anything to do with a woman like that because there's no form of exclusivity, and it is really doing things for all the wrong reasons, for seeking attention. Now, this one was probably in her early to mid-20s. And I want to contrast that with something else that happened at the grocery store, which was a positive interaction, by the way. But there was a woman who had asked me if I could help her grab something that was high on a shelf, and it was a few things of kefir, I believe. It might be pronounced a little bit differently. I don't buy that, but I heard it's supposed to be good. And there were no romantic implications with this interaction, but I helped her, and she said thank you and have a good night, and it was a pleasant interaction. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because me helping this woman reach for something that she couldn't, or that she wasn't tall enough to, I could say that men are taller than women, which on average they are, right? And someone could tell me that, oh, well, I know a woman who's 6 foot. Just like, which that, of course, that's an exception to the rule, but that doesn't make that sort of generalization true. Whereas I could call out this behavior at the gym that I saw. And someone could say, oh, well, I have a friend of mine who's in a perfectly healthy relationship and is married. I say, okay, that's great, of course. But that doesn't change what a majority of people are seeing and dealing with, especially with on social media. It doesn't change that, the behavior nowadays. This woman at the grocery store was older, which I suppose also is in some way a contrast between generations and such. What is a priority to them with the recording and the really how much of a forefront social media has played in our lives now, because of course it was around to some extent. And even in the early 2000s, for the most part, it was only adults on there. Maybe with close friends and family. People weren't putting on some kind of image and using it for all the wrong reasons. But I had seen something that it wasn't, I didn't see it directly on social media, but it revolved around social media. And it was a woman. You guys may have heard of this. I think it definitely was talked about. But there's a woman who was working for DoorDash. And I've done DoorDash orders in the past, so I guess I kind of want to give my take on this anyway. But a 23-year-old woman who was doing a delivery. And she had gone to the house. And I guess this guy was passed out on the couch, not wearing anything. And she started recording him and uploaded on TikTok. The video had gone viral and got something around 30 million views. Now, she got fired from DoorDash. She is dealing with some form of a trial right now. I don't recall the exact charges. But the times that I've done DoorDash, When you make a delivery, you send a screenshot, you leave at the door, and that's it. There's no reason to peek in the door and any of that. Now, from what they're saying is that there was doorbell camera footage showing that the door was very slightly opened and that she actually opened it all the way, like was visible in the video that was posted on social media, and just started recording this guy. The times that I've had problems with DoorDash orders in the past, there was one time where someone was very rude over Messenger because I had refunded something that was out of stock, and they're saying, "Oh, you should have found an alternative," and proceeded to just, insults and all that. And rather than being like, okay, I'm going to blast them on social media, I just contacted support. They canceled the order. That was that. End of story. You don't record something like that and upload it on social media, really for attention or this obsession with everything revolving around you. That's the problem. The social media stuff is a big problem. Now, additionally, I had come across something on social media that was a kid who met a hero of his, who was the voice actor of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and it was very pleasant to see. But you don't see enough of that. You don't see enough positivity, even when it comes to the gym. That woman recording in the gym, you don't see enough of uplifting other people, showing them how to do the exercise with proper form. A lot of these, right, so-called female fitness influencers, all call it like it is. They are just looking for ego and attention. Obviously there are some out there that are really around fitness, but recording at those angles, wearing what you're wearing in the gym, which, I wouldn't want, if I had a sister or a daughter, if that applied, I wouldn't want them leaving the house dressed like that. That's the problem. That's what so many men are talking about and why they're just opted out, done. It's what it comes down to, because first of all, they're going to value exclusivity. They're not going to want a woman who engages in those kind of things. And I've heard this mentioned of how, oh, well, when they're in a relationship, or if it applies, a woman saying, when I'm in a relationship, that stuff will cease to continue. But even having the urge for that is a problem. Now, anyone who has quit a habit, I think, knows what I'm talking about. Where if you are around people who engage in that kind of habit, you are more likely to fall into it or fall back into it even after you've quit. So for a woman, like, let's just say, for example here in the gym, to say, okay, I'm in a relationship now, I'm not going to dress that way to the gym, I'm not going to record such videos, or even just saying I'm not going to go to bars, I'm not going to go to the clubs when I'm in a relationship. You shouldn't have had those urges to begin with, because those are not at all things that are going to lead to a feasible relationship. A self-respecting man is not going to want to be with a woman who does those kind of things. So really, that's what it comes down to. This idea of a man being a provider is a lot more than just financial, right? A lot more than just financial. But the problem, really the dilemma, that I think a lot of men are seeing right now, and that's regardless of, like I'd mentioned, if, exception to the rule, because if, whether you think there's good women out there or not, I think that by a certain age, a lot of them are taken. And of course, there are women who are widows, they are, right, and no man's perfect either. Like, I've known people who have had fathers in their lives that were actually, not doing things they should be doing, right? Yeah, the mother shouldn't be held accountable for that. It's not her fault. I understand that. But a lot of men right now are facing a dilemma where it is either overlook red flags, tolerate disrespect just to be in a relationship, or be single and hold out for a good woman to come into your life, or rather to perhaps to not be around such influences. Because I know there's a lot of men who will go overseas and such, but I really think and even, look, I'm not taking any accountability away from the individuals here, but even when I mentioned the girl recording the guy with the DoorDash, the woman in the gym, in many ways, it's a critique of the times we're in. It's a critique of all of the influences which are just detrimental. That kind of behavior never should be at the forefront. It should not be celebrated, certainly. And that's another thing I'll say too. If you ever come across those kind of posts with the gym stuff, and you look at the comments, it is either, sad to say, some men putting like heart emojis, which they shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't be engaging with that stuff to begin with, and giving them the attention and validation that they even want by posting that in the first place. But I'll also see, which is obviously encouraging it, but I'll also see women who are encouraging it, acting like this is a good thing, celebrating it. Now, a good friend should be honest in saying that what you are doing is wrong. If you are doing something that is negative that you should not be doing, a good friend is going to call it out. They're not going to encourage that kind of behavior. We've heard about, I'm sure, yes men and stuff like that. You don't want those people in your life, right, in your circle. But I see that behavior not only accepted, but in some cases actually encouraged. And that's a very bad thing. It's a very bad thing. And there are men who will actually get with women like that, and they will be told that they're insecure because they have a problem with it, that they're controlling because they have a problem with it, get with the times. Just because the majority is doing something doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean that you should just go along with it. When it comes to standards, now I've had this conversation with actually a good friend of mine recently. When it comes to social media, in saying that if a woman doesn't have social media, that it is a green flag. And essentially what we had come to a conclusion of was good luck finding a woman under the age of 35 that doesn't have some form of social media. Now, what I said in response, which I agree with, is if the account's on private, friends and family, not having the life revolve around social media, I would say you could say that's a green flag. But the problem is they're still seeing all of the influence of it. Now, I've even tested this. I've made new accounts and just happened to scroll and not share anything, not like anything, not comment on anything, and just seeing where it leads me eventually. And you don't have to look very far to come across that stuff. It's very much in the limelight, right? Whereas things like I mentioned with that kid meeting his childhood, his hero, you don't see enough of that. And that's the problem. You don't see enough of that, right? It's been a very big shift, and I think it's really even bigger than dating. Why so many men feel like they don't have any sense of community, any sense of belonging, why a lot of them are walking away from friends, walking away from relationships. That's really what it comes down to, because self-respecting men are going to look at that and want nothing to do with it. Now, when it comes to the gym, I want to mention this as well. When it comes to recording in the gym, I've heard that there are some gyms that have policies where they don't allow recording. I personally haven't seen it, so, and again, I don't always go to gyms, but I would say there needs to be some way to limit that. I'm not sure exactly what the kind of the proper stuff is behind recording in public, right? And if I happen to be at the gym and I'm in, I don't, it's not a big deal. But I could see why people would feel uncomfortable with it, right? Especially when I've seen videos on social media of a guy happens to look in a woman's general direction and they're a creep for whatever reason. If they're not even looking at him. And look, I mean, if a woman's dressed like that in the first place, and I don't think that she should be surprised when she gets that kind of attention. I don't. I don't think she should be dressed like that in the first place. I don't think men should pay any mind to it in the first place. But to even act surprised to me doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. A guy's not a creep if he's minding his own business and is on the stair stepper and happens to look at your general direction for half a second. He might even be looking at you in the first place. He very well might not be. Even when I saw this woman on the turf at the gym, no one was really looking at her direction. They were all just minding their own business because they're there to work out. They don't have time. And I think a lot of people now, a lot of men now see it for what it is. And it's exactly why they are walking away from things like that. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you for viewing the video. Hope you guys have a good one. Just kind of my thoughts here with why we've got to the point where so many men are choosing solitude over relationships. So, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.